May 24, 1941. The Denmark Strait, 05:45 hours. The sea is a churning cauldron of steel-grey water and freezing mist. On the bridge of the German battleship Bismarck, the air is electric with tension. Frost spiders across the viewports as Admiral Günther Lütjens stares into the gloom, his face a mask of cold determination. Below his feet, 50,000 tons of the most advanced, most powerful warship afloat slice through the waves. This is Operation Rheinübung, the mission to break out into the Atlantic and sever Britain's lifeline, strangling the island nation into submission. For days they have slipped past the Royal Navy's patrols, a ghost in the fog. But the hunt is on. Suddenly, the voice of a lookout cuts through the quiet hum of the bridge. Schiffe in Sicht, zwei feindliche Schiffe, ships in sight, 2 enemy ships. The alarm clangs, a jarring, metallic scream that sends hundreds of men scrambling to battle stations. Deep within the ship's belly, gun crews move with practiced urgency. The massive 15-inch shell siege weighing as much as a small Carrare hoisted into the breeches of the main turrets. Anton, Bruno, Caesar and Dora. On the deck of the British battlecruiser HMS Hood, the pride of the Royal Navy. The alarm is also sounding. Vice Admiral Lancelot Holland has found his prey. Alongside him steams the brand-new battleship HMS Prince of Wales. For the British sailors, this is the moment of truth. They are facing the Bismarck, a ship that is already a legend, a symbol of German engineering and might. But the Hood is a legend in her own right, the most famous warship in the world. At 05:52, Admiral Lütjens gives the order, Feuer frei, open fire. With a deafening, concussive roar that feels like the world is tearing itself apart, Bismarck's main guns unleash hell. Orange-white flames erupt from the barrels and immense shells shriek across the 14 miles of icy water. The British fire back, their own salvos bracketing the German ships in towering plumes of spray. For a few minutes, the two titans trade blows. Imagine you are a sailor on the Prince of Wales, watching as geysers of water hundreds of feet high erupt around your ship, the sound a physical blow to your chest. Then you see the flashes from the Bismarck's guns again. This is her 5th salvo. One of those shells, traveling at over 1,800 miles per hour, follows a perfect, horrifying arc. It strikes the Hood near her mainmast, piercing through the deck armor, which was her fatal weakness. It travels down through the ship's guts until it finds the main ammunition magazine. There is a flicker of light, a flash, and then HMS Hood simply ceases to exist. A pillar of fire and smoke erupts 1,000 feet into the sky, a catastrophic volcanic explosion that rips the mighty battlecruiser in two. The shockwave slams into the other ships like an invisible hammer. When the smoke clears, there is nothing left but a burning slick of oil and scattered debris. Of the 1,418 men aboard the Hood, only 3 will survive. The entire battle lasted less than 10 minutes. The Prince of Wales, now alone and suffering technical malfunctions with its new guns, is hit multiple times and forced to turn away under a smokescreen. Aboard the Bismarck, a triumphant cheer erupts. They have obliterated the pride of the Royal Navy in a single, perfectly placed shot. The ship feels more than just a machine of war. It feels invincible, a creature of legend. With the Prince Eugen by its side, the wounded but victorious Bismarck continues its course into the vast open Atlantic. In London, the news is received with stunned disbelief. A furious Winston Churchill gives a simple, chilling order that will echo across the entire British Admiralty. Sink the Bismarck. The hunt has now become a vendetta. Every available ship, every plane, from every corner of the North Atlantic is diverted with a single purpose. But the question hangs heavy in the air. How do you kill a monster that seems unsinkable? The answer to that question is now the singular obsession of the entire British home fleet. Aboard his flagship, HMS King George V, Admiral John Tovey receives the news of the Hood's demise with grim fury. The loss is not just tactical, it is a dagger to the heart of the Royal Navy and the British people. Revenge is a powerful motivator. But Tovey is a professional. He knows the Bismarck is now the most dangerous weapon in the Atlantic, and it must be stopped. The problem is, the Bismarck is faster than his battleships, and it is quickly outdistancing them. There is, however, one glimmer of hope. One of the Prince of Wales's parting shots had struck the Bismarck forward, rupturing a fuel tank and contaminating the supply. Admiral Lutyens is forced to make a fateful decision. He cannot raid the Atlantic as planned. He must make for the safety of a friendly port in occupied France, Saint-Nazaire. This changes the geometry of the chase. It is now a desperate race. Can the Royal Navy catch the wounded beast before it reaches the protective umbrella of the Luftwaffe? The first chance falls to a vessel that, on paper, has no business being there. The aircraft carrier HMS Victorious. And its primary weapon is an aircraft that many considered a flying antique, the fairy Swordfish. Imagine the scene on Victorious's flight deck on the evening of May 24th. A gale is blowing, whipping icy spray across the heaving deck. The men of 825 Naval Air Squadron are climbing into their aircraft. These are not sleek metal monoplanes. The Swordfish is a biplane, a mess of canvas, wire and wood with an open cockpit exposing the three-man crew to the elements. Its top speed is a laughable 138 miles per hour, so slow that the Bismarck can almost outrun it. The German sailors will later nickname it the string bag, a name the British pilots adopt with ironic pride. To them, it is a tough, reliable workhorse. Tonight, these 9 obsolete planes, led by the legendary Lieutenant Commander Eugene Esmond, are being sent to attack a battleship. As they take off into the stormy twilight, the task seems suicidal. They fly low, just 50 feet above a churning, mountainous sea that threatens to swallow them whole. Their navigation equipment is rudimentary, and for hours they battle the storm, searching for a single ship in the vast grey emptiness. On the Bismarck, the German lookouts can hardly believe what they are seeing. These ancient-looking aircraft, bucking and weaving through the wind, appear like ghosts out of the past. The ship's formidable anti-aircraft batteries over 100 guns erupt in a terrifying barrage. The sky is filled with a dense, black curtain of flak, laced with the red-orange streams of tracer rounds. For the Swordfish pilots, it's like flying into a wall of fire. They press the attack. Braving the storm of steel, they dive towards the warship, dropping their single torpedoes. One of them, launched by Sub-Lieutenant John Moffat, finds its mark. It strikes the Bismarck amidships, right on its main armored bit. The explosion is jarring, sending a deep shudder through the massive hull and killing one crewman. But the damage is largely superficial. The thick Krupp steel armor holds. To the Germans, it is a minor nuisance, proof that these pathetic little planes are no real threat. But the attack does something else. It confirms the Bismarck's location and slows it, if only for a moment. Most importantly, it serves as a warning. The beast can be wounded. But then, disaster strikes for the British. In the dead of night, under the cover of the worsening storm, Admiral Lutyens executes a brilliant maneuver. He orders the Bismarck to make a wide 270-degree turn, circling back behind his pursuers. The British cruisers, their radar fixated on the last known course, steam onwards into the empty ocean. At 3:03 on May 25th, the British cruiser HMS Suffolk reports the unthinkable. Contact has been lost. The Bismarck has vanished. For the next 31 hours, a terrifying silence descends upon the Admiralty's war room. The hunter has slipped the trap. It is now a ghost, wounded and angry, steaming towards safety. With every passing hour, it gets closer to France and closer to victory. The greatest naval hunt in history has, for now, failed. May 26, 1941. Royal Air Force Base, Lough Erne, Northern Ireland. 0300 hours. The air is damp and cold as the crew of a consolidated PBY Catalina flying boat trudges across the tarmac. The mission is a grim one, part of a massive, desperate grid search across the storm-tossed Atlantic. For over a day, the pride of the German Navy has been a ghost, and with every tick of the clock, it slips closer to the safety of the French coast, where U-boats and Luftwaffe bombers wait. For the British ships giving chase, fuel is becoming a critical issue. Admiral Tovey's battleships are burning through their reserves at an alarming rate. If they don't find the Bismarck soon, They will be forced to turn back in failure. The hunt is on the verge of collapse. Inside the rattling fuselage of the Catalina, designated Z for zebra, the mood is one of monotonous fatigue. The crew, a mix of British and American airmen, scan the endless expanse of grey sea and low scudding clouds. The American pilot, Ensign Leonard Tuck Smith, is an observer from the still neutral US Navy, here to learn the business of war. He is about to get the lesson of a lifetime. For hours there is nothing. Just the drone of the engines, the static of the radio, and the sight of whitecaps on an empty ocean. It is a search for a needle in a haystack the size of a continent. At 10:10 a.m., a break in the clouds. Co-pilot Flying Officer Dennis Briggs spots something, a dark shape on the water far below. It could be anything, a trawler, a merchantman, but as they descend through the cloud layer for a closer look, the shape resolves itself into the unmistakable, lethal silhouette of a warship, trailing a massive wake. There is no doubt. The long, clean lines, the twin forward turrets, the glint of steel. It is the Bismarck. Ensign Smith grabs the radio microphone, his voice sharp and urgent, cutting through the static. He transmits the most important contact report of the war. One battleship bearing 240 degrees, distance 5 miles, heading 150. My position on the Bismarck, lookouts had spotted the Catalina moments earlier. The ship's anti-aircraft guns, already on high alert, roar to life. The sky around the slow, lumbering flying boat erupts in a storm of black puffs of flak. Shells burst around them, peppering the thin aluminum skin of the aircraft with shrapnel. Smith throws the Catalina into a steep, banking turn, diving for the cover of the low clouds as German shells chase them through the sky. They have poked the beast with a stick, and it is furious. But they have done their job. The message is out, hundreds of miles away, on the bridge of HMS King George V. The report is received with a jolt of electricity. The ghost has reappeared. The plotters in the operations room scramble, marking the new position on the great map of the Atlantic. A wave of relief washes over the fleet, but it is immediately replaced by a cold, hard calculation. The Bismarck is now only 700 miles from the safety of Brest. Admiral Tovey's battleships, their fuel dangerously low, are still too far away. They cannot catch her in time. The German behemoth is going to escape. But there is one last card to play. Steaming hard from Gibraltar is a powerful British naval group designated Force H. It includes the battlecruiser HMS Renown and, most critically, the aircraft carrier HMS Ark Royal. She is the only vessel close enough and with weapons that can reach out and strike the Bismarck. The fate of the entire chase, the honor of the Royal Navy, and the strategic balance of the Battle of the Atlantic now rested on the shoulders of the pilots of the Ark Royal and their slow, obsolete-looking biplanes. Their target was still over 100 miles away, steaming at full speed through a rising gale. They would get one chance, and one chance only, to cripple the beast before it slipped away forever. May 26, 1941. Flight deck of HMS Ark Royal. 1910 hours. The world has become a symphony of chaos. A Force 9 gale is raging, whipping the Atlantic into a frenzy of mountainous waves. The flight deck of the Ark Royal pitches and rolls violently, at times heaving more than 55 feet, its steel plates groaning in protest. Green water crashes over the bow, sending sheets of freezing spray flying 100 feet into the air. To even stand on this deck is a life-threatening act. To launch an aircraft from it seems like a form of madness. Yet that is exactly what is happening. Just hours earlier, the first strike had ended in a near-catastrophic fiasco. A wave of Swordfish, launched in slightly better conditions, had attacked the British cruiser HMS Sheffield, mistaking it for the Bismarck on their primitive radar. By a miracle, no one was killed. The new magnetic detonators on their torpedoes proved disastrously faulty, with many exploding the second they hit the rough sea. The pilots had returned to the carrier demoralized, their best weapons useless and their confidence shaken. The entire operation teetered on the brink of humiliating failure. But there is no time for despair. This is the last chance. On the hangar deck, below the storm, is a scene of frantic, desperate activity. Armorers, drenched and exhausted, work with feverish intensity. their hands numb with cold as they rip the faulty magnetic pistols from the torpedoes and replace them with the old, reliable contact detonators they know and trust. The pilots, led by Lieutenant Commander Tim Coode, receive their final briefing. They are told to confirm their target visually. No more mistakes. This time, it is for real. The fate of the chase now rests entirely on them. They climb back into the open cockpits of their string bags. The wind howls through the wire rigging, threatening to tear the canvas from their frames before they even take off. You are one of those pilots. The freezing rain stings your face as you strap yourself in. Below you, the flight deck crew, clinging to lifelines, struggle to guide your aircraft into position. You watch the sea, a terrifying panorama of liquid peaks and troughs. The ship drops from under you, your stomach lurching, then climbs a wave with sickening speed. The flight deck officer, Lieutenant Commander Jesse Jessup, must time the launch to the precise second the bow reaches the peak of its ascent. A moment too early, you plunge into the sea. A moment too late, you stall and fall. At 19:15, the first Swordfish screams down the deck. It hangs in the air for a heart-stopping moment, seemingly suspended by the sheer force of the headwind, before clawing its way into the bruised purple sky. One by one, the 15 biplanes follow, each a desperate gamble against the elements. They form up in the stormy twilight, 15 fragile specks of wood and fabric against the fury of the Atlantic, and turn towards the last known position of their target. On the Bismarck, Admiral Lutyens is confident. The storm is his ally, a shield against the hated aircraft carriers. He believes he is safe. He even sends a message to Berlin. Attack by carrier aircraft improbable due to weather. He does not know that 15 of the most improbable aircraft in the world are at that very moment battling through the squalls, flying low over the waves, their crews straining their eyes in the fading light. They are hunting for him, armed with nothing but a single torpedo, old-fashioned guts, and the last desperate hope of the British fleet. May the 26th, 1941, North Atlantic, 20:47 hours. The Bismarck appears out of the gloom like a phantom. For the Swordfish crews, flying just above the raging sea, the sight is both terrifying and exhilarating. The ship is a fortress of steel, maneuvering violently, its bow plunging into massive waves that send spray hundreds of feet into the air. Suddenly, the sky erupts. Every anti-aircraft gun on the German battleship opens up in a furious, desperate crescendo. The air becomes a solid wall of explosions and tracers, a deadly lattice of red, orange, and black. The German gunners, fighting for their lives, throw everything they have at the slow-moving biplanes. The noise is apocalyptic, a constant, deafening roar of cannon fire and bursting shells. The Swordfish pilots do not hesitate. They break formation and begin their attack runs, coming in from all directions to split the ship's defensive fire. Imagine you are in the cockpit of one of these string bags. The aircraft is bucking and shaking so violently it feels like it will tear itself apart. The wind and rain are a physical assault. Through the wire struts, you see the Bismarck growing larger, spitting fire. You push the nose down, diving towards the waves, leveling out just 50 feet above the churning water. You are so close, you can see the flashes from the individual gun muzzles, the faces of the German sailors staring up at you with a mixture of hatred and disbelief. One Swordfish is ripped apart by shells, its crew lost to the sea. Another is riddled with shrapnel, its fabric wings shredded, but its pilot holds it steady. They are flying through a hurricane of steel. The first torpedoes drop, streaking through the water, but the Bismarck's skillful helmsman, Hans-Jörg Lehmann, anticipates their tracks, turning the massive ship with surprising agility to comb the torpedoes, letting them pass harmlessly by. The attacks seem to be failing. The beast is too quick, its hide too thick. Then, two Swordfish from 818 Squadron, flown by Sub-Lieutenants John Moffat and Kenneth Patterson, make their approach from the port quarter. In the chaos, they become the last hope. As they dive, Lehmann is already turning the ship hard to port to avoid another torpedo run from starboard. It is a fatal move. This maneuver exposes the battleship's stern, the one area not protected by the thick main armor belt. Moffat and Patterson release their torpedoes. On the Bismarck's bridge, the officers watch the thin, white wakes approaching. They are confident they can evade them. But one torpedo, launched by Moffat's crew, runs true. It isn't aimed at the hull. By a 1-in-a-million chance, it strikes the stern, right at the ship's weakest point, its steering gear. The 485-pound warhead detonates with a deep, jarring boom that feels less like an explosion and more like the ship's spine has been snapped. The blast violently wrenches the Bismarck's twin rudders, jamming them hard to port. Deep inside the ship's steering compartment, seawater floods in. The damage control teams, working in darkness and rising water, report the unthinkable. The rudders are locked. They cannot be moved. They cannot be disengaged. Captain Ernst Lindemann tries everything using the differential power of the ship's 3 massive propellers, even trying to blow the rudders off with explosives, but nothing works. The Bismarck, the most powerful warship afloat, is now trapped. It can no longer steer a straight course. It can only turn in wide, uncontrollable circles, heading not for the safety of France, but north, directly back into the waiting arms of Admiral Tovey's vengeful fleet. Aboard the bridge, a horrifying realization dawns upon Admiral Lütjens and his crew. The lucky shot from the obsolete biplane has not sunk them. It has done something far worse. It has signed their death warrant. The unsinkable beast has become a sitting duck. The hunt was over. The execution was about to begin.